With all this dry heat, we need things to get a bit drafty. Thank God we have the NBA Draft and the NHL Draft, all stuff in 1 week. And Las Vegas is front and center, baby, with the NBA G League Ignite players getting scooped up early in the first round. And, of course, the NHL taking over the Sphere. There's lots to discuss. You bet our panel is ready. Sin City Beat starts right now.
From Las Vegas, this is Sin City Beat.
See that? Heat and drafty. It's play on words.
Poetic.
I'm proud of myself there. Hello there and welcome. Thanks for joining us on Sin City Beat. I'm Mike Davis. Sin City Beat is the show that dissects the Vegas sports world through the eyes of the sports reporters and storytellers leading the charge. On today's show, we're talking NBA and NHL Draft. Joining the action, we have Case Kiefer, assistant sports editor of the Las Vegas Sun. We have our very own sports reporter, Mariah Janos with Fox 5 Las Vegas. And he's back for round two, Jack Williams, sports reporter with the Las Vegas Sun. Great to have you guys with us. So 2 drafts going down in 1 week. Let's start with the NBA. Sure, the NBA G League Ignite experiment in Henderson might have folded, but the success the program is seeing with players getting drafted early and often is something we can surely appreciate. Now, this year at the 5th overall pick, the Detroit Pistons selected Ron Holland, and at 11th overall, the Chicago Bulls selected hometown kid Modest Buzelis. So, Case, let me start with you. How would you grade those 2 picks?
I don't get the Holland pick at all. And this isn't, I'm not trying to hit on the kid or say it's necessarily him. It's just the Pistons, they were the worst team in the league last year. They dropped to 5. They are in desperate need of shooting. Why did Ron Holland drop from being the #1 pick to some people thought he might be towards the end of the lotteries because he couldn't shoot? So I give that a bad grade.
And let's talk about this for a second, because leading into the season with the Ignite and everything, Ron Holland was considered the top prospect going into this year's class. He can't shoot. He's great defensively. He was highly touted. But on a roster where you're void of shooting, it's puzzling. And a lot of people thought Modest Buzelis was going to be the guy there. So to go with Ron, what's the train of thought there?
I mean, I don't really get it. I understand maybe wanting best available, but I don't think he was. And you look at it, like you mentioned, he has shooting issues. He has turnover issues. Those are areas where the Detroit Pistons really struggle, so I don't think he's the kid for them. And I said it when we talked about him previously in one of our past shows, but his 3-ball is going to determine his ceiling in this league, and he doesn't really have one right now.
No, he's void of a 3-point shot, void of shooting completely. It's fascinating because the Detroit Pistons, they don't have shooting and they don't have a head coach. So they have a lot of things they got to work on. But I think it's a pick because they're thinking about potential, right? I mean, Jack, when you saw that selection at 5, it was puzzling. What's your take on Ron Holland and what the Pistons are trying to do with this funky pick?
Yeah, well, like you said, I mean, the Pistons were, awful this year to say the least. But, as you mentioned, building for the future and stuff like that, maybe you're putting in the pieces to get somewhere down the road. A lot of these teams, when they're coming off of rough seasons, it's going to look rough in the beginning. And, it might not make sense now, but, 5 years down the road, maybe this is something looking back and said, this is a steal, did not make sense at the moment, it makes sense now.
The potential's there. There is some upside to him. It's not like he is completely horrendous, but it will take time to see if he actually fits in, and it's going to take more than Ron Holland to bring the Detroit Pistons back to life.
Oh, certainly. I mean, listen, he did some good things last year. He averaged a little over 20 points a game, 6.5 rebounds, some assists, great defensive player, but a lot to work on there. But a lot of players do develop their 3-point shot and their shot after they come into the league. Guys like Kawhi Leonard, that was a perfect example. But let's transition now to my dude, Modest Buzelis, a Chicagoland kid who gets to stay with the Chicago Bulls. I mean, he was super emotional. His brother was even more so emotional, and seeing him get drafted on draft night. Let's talk about the fit there, because I think for a 19-year-old guy who's a multi-positional wing and can shoot, can put the ball on the floor, can transition from, coast to coast. What do you think about this pick, Case, and how do you think he can develop? I think he could turn out to be even a better player just because of the fit.
Yeah, I don't know how great of a show it would make. We should rename this Sin City Buzelis. We're like the biggest fans of this guy. I think it was a couple months ago. I think us 3 were here, and we were all higher on Modest Buzelis than Ron Holland. Then we were all talking him up. I just think his game kind of fits with where the NBA is going right now. I still think there's some untapped potential. If you swapped these two picks and Bucelis went 5th to the Pistons, I think I would like Holland in Chicago, and I think Bucelis would make sense at 5. Maybe Chicago got a steal. I certainly am more bullish on Bucelis.
But I do think fit is such a big deal in all drafts. When you're talking NFL, NHL, NBA, it's always about fit. So I think the fact that Bucelis goes to Chicago, he gets to develop in his hometown. I think he's going to end up becoming that much better of a player just because of that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. When there's that extra fuel in you and you get selected by the team you grew up watching, the team you grew up rooting for, you're a hometown kid, you are fully bought in and you don't need to question that about him at all. So, yes, skill-wise, there are things he needs to improve upon. He's still very raw in some areas, but he's young, he's got time. And again, I think just the buy-in factor with this team will help him and make up in maybe those areas where skill-wise he's still figuring it out.
100%. And we're all rooting for both these guys. We do have I have a Monas Bucelis bobblehead on my desk, so I
need to get one of those.
Super invested in this guy's future. So congratulations to both those guys from the G League, Ignite now in the NBA. But now it's time. We got to go beyond these Ignite guys, and we got to talk about Bronny James. Where will he land? Where should he land? Will he play with his father? We got the answers next.
You're watching Sin City Beat.
Welcome back to Sin City Beat. Well, this past year, for the first time, I heard the term Nepo baby, short for nepotism baby, a child that benefits from having a celebrity parent or parents in the same chosen career. For instance, actress Dakota Johnson. You know, she's the daughter of Don Johnson, Miami Vice, and Melanie Griffith, or Willow and Jaden Smith. Their parents are, of course, Will and Jada Smith. Well, nepotism might work in Hollywood or at your local neighborhood H&R Block, but not in basketball, not in the NBA, right? I mean, sports is about results. It's about what you can do on the hardwood. It's about assembling the best players across the globe to put on that court. It has nothing to do with what your dad did in short shorts and a jockstrap back in '84. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? We thought sports was protected from nepotism. Not anymore. The first Nepo baby to hit the NBA will be Bronny James, and it won't be the last. An undersized two-guard who averaged 4.8 points per game at USC last season. He's not a crafty ball handler you'd want at 6'3", or the shot creator or shooter you'd want as your shooting guard. So my take is drafting Bronny James is like going on a date with a girl so you can ultimately date her mom. Mariah Jones.
Thank you for having me follow up on this. That was something.
Mariah, if you were an NBA GM, would you in fact draft Bronny James?
No, I would not. You just mentioned the points he was averaging at USC. He played in 25 games. 19 of those he's coming off the bench. He mostly has to play off the ball. Not an impressive performance. Again, you don't really know where to put him at this point.
Exactly.
He's a multi-year college-level player. I think he could really benefit from it. He is nowhere near NBA ready. And honestly, it sounds like his younger brother is a little more impressive than him.
And listen, we have to mention the fact that he had the cardiac arrest and all the health issues. That's a factor. It's not, we're not taking that away from the situation. But the thing is, there's guys who are drafted in the second round who are super impressive players who won championships in college, who demonstrated on the hardwood what they can do. And this guy has demonstrated nothing. Yeah. And we're talking about him so much. Jack, are you as upset about this nepotism factor coming into sports like me? I mean, listen, Jerome McGinley, right? I grew up loving this guy. We're going to be talking about the NHL draft in a little bit. His son is getting a lot of talk, right, coming into the NHL draft, but he's a stud. So we understand the pedigree of having parents who performed at a higher level, but we've never had a kid enter the league because of their parent and not because of what they can do from a sports standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. When I saw him enter the draft, I just kind of was like, why? Why? You're averaging 4 points a game. I covered Florida State last year, and I can think of 3 guys that could go before him and just the impact that they had on the court. He's having... Not to be harsh, but he had no impact really on the court at all. And just riding off of your name into the NBA where there's no one's going to care what your last name is at all. Like, it's just not the way to go into it. Like you said, he needs more college experience. Right. Jared McCann, who is part of Duke, unbelievable for Duke this year, was a freshman, lit it up. If Bronny James had that year at USC, I don't think we'd be having this conversation,
No.
but he hasn't done anything.
And his tandem, his cohort in USC, right, Isaiah Collier, he wasn't drafted in the first round. So now this is a guy who, he's not even drafted yet. He was that much more spectacular, but we're still talking about Bronny James.
I do think Collier went to the Jazz, right? Just not in the lottery.
Oh.
But still, I can't believe you guys are turning me into a Bronny James guy here, and I'm not. I don't think I drafted him, but there's some upside there. I think where you look at the second round and you see like guys like stick out like Nikola Jokic and these All-Stars, there's a lot of second round guys that get taken. You're like, look at their film or look at their stats, and you're like, who is this? At least, I think you have got to go back to the cardiac arrest. Got to look at the situation at USC last year. It was a disaster. Andy Enfield's now jumped ship.
Yeah.
Like you said, Collier dove down draft boards even more than Ron Holland. He's a good defensive player. He did some good things in high school. He had that terrible cardiac arrest. I don't hate it. I think only the Lakers are going to take him. I do think he could use more seasoning, but I'm not ready to just write off there's no way this guy is a successful at least role player or bench guy in the NBA.
It's just puzzling to me. And the thing is, even if you look at his tape from high school, it's not like he was that standout at high school either.
He did go to Sierra Canyon. He wasn't like, he wasn't sticking to his school district and playing with. I think there's places where he could have done a lot better.
Here's what I want to know, Case, personally. Have you ever dated a girl or went on a date with a girl so you can get to another person in the friend group? That's literally what, like, the Dallas Mavericks are going to try to do. They're going to literally draft this kid so they can get his dad on the team.
I hope that happens. The NBA, almost more fun than the games, is the soap opera. And what's the better soap opera than LeBron, we're holding your son hostage. Come sign here. I love that. I want that. I want one of these teams to
You just sold me.
draft him.
You just sold me.
I think this is awful for sports.
I love a hostage.
I actually really, because that's why we love sports. Sports is the one place that we don't need Dakota Johnson in our movie because of her parents. It's because of what you can actually do. It doesn't matter who your mommy and daddy is, and that's why we love sports. But I can go on a whole thing about this. We're gonna have.
You already did.
I already did. Exactly. All right, coming up, guys. We're gonna transition. Thank God. To the NBA draft, to the NHL draft. Who can we expect the Vegas Golden Knights to draft at 19th overall? We'll tell you after the break. All right, hockey is taking over the sphere for the NHL draft. After a disappointing end to the season, the Vegas Golden Knights will be selecting at 19th overall. That's the earliest this team will pick since 2019 when they sat at 17th overall, ultimately taking center Peyton Krebs. So with so many players on the roster set for free agency, the draft is a perfect time to add some new young players. Jack, who are some of these potential guys the Knights could target at pick 19?
Yeah, after going crazy yesterday for 2 hours and going through multiple mock drafts, I think it's come down to two guys. The one I prefer is Jet Latchenko, who plays for Guelph in the Ontario Hockey League. He is a little undersized at 5'11". I'm saying that as a 5'6" man. But he just has good sense on the ice. He has a good shot. He's passing the puck, moving the puck a lot. Good numbers overall. The other pick it's looking like it's going to come down to is Trevor Connolly, who is one of the top North American skaters, one of the top skaters in the U.S. right now, putting up good numbers, has some great hands. He's a lot messy on the off the ice. He has some
character.
He has a lot of character.
Yeah, let's say he posted a swastika on social media when he was 16 back in 2022. He apologized for the incident. He was cut from the Long Island Seagulls. So would that deter you from drafting him?
Yeah. I mean, it's like that. There's multiple things too. He's moved around very quickly to a lot of programs as well. He was in the youth program, I believe, one of the more elite high school programs in the country. He was there for about 2 weeks, and then he's been all over the place as well. There's been some reports of him using racial slurs that have been suspended. He's denied that. He's talked about how he's changed his character and he's done charity work and stuff like that. But at this point, I'm just like, you want to really bring this into your organization. He's a good player, and he does seem like a bit of a puck hog, in my opinion, too. But in my opinion, you don't want all of that coming with him.
It sounds lovely, and it would be great to bring him home to mom and dad. But let's talk beyond him, because I'm hoping we don't select this guy. Yeah. Who else are we thinking, Case? Do you like anybody else that we could potentially target at that 19 slot?
There's so many prospects on the hockey draft, especially. It just seems like there's a million different directions they could go. My thing is, as far as Connolly's, I think the more pertinent question is, will it deter the Golden Knights? Because in my mind, I feel like if they like this guy, they're going to take him. What have we learned about this team. They do not care about visibility. They don't care about the negative press. I think if they have him rated highly, they might hesitate, but I don't think they're going to hesitate much. I would not be surprised if he ends up being the pick.
Okay, so beyond 19, the overall sentiment with this draft, I know, Mariah, you got to see some of these guys in action with some younger kids. Macklin Celebrini, considered to be the first overall pick of this draft, you know, a Vancouver kid, but played at BU. There's also, I mean, it's interesting to see a lot more American colleges, you know, kind of having players develop. What do you think about him? What do you think about the overall sentiment of this draft?
I'm excited to see where he's at right now, but again, he's 17 years old. The youngest kid to win the Hobey Baker Award, given to the best player in college hockey, and rightly so, he deserves it. And it just says like where he's at this point. But from talking to him, he's 17.
Right.
Like he's a 17-year-old kid, and it's kind of endearing. And obviously, he's got skills on the ice that he is the unanimous overall pick for a reason. So I'm not too concerned about him. But from just a personality standpoint, from talking to him yesterday, he is a 17-year-old boy.
It's going to be sad for VGK fans to have to deal with him potentially on San Jose for the next coming years. But let's transition to this. You know, Stanley Cup Finals wrapped up. Connor McDavid getting the Conn Smythe Award. You know, best, you know, throughout the course of the playoffs, he set a lot of records, broke Gretzky's assist record, you know, 42 points, a little under what I think was the most since, like, you know, Malkin, you know, in 06 or 07, something like that. Should the Conn Smythe Award go to a player who's not on the winning team in this Stanley Cup? I mean, the Oilers lost, and still Connor McDavid gets this award. How did you guys feel about that?
I had no problem with it. I think, especially in the Panthers case, it was kind of a whole team effort. You know, I think Sergei Bobrovsky, where a lot of people, the Panthers fans, are complaining, he had some terrible games, and his numbers would not stack up at all compared to goalies that won the Conn Smythe in the past. I know Sasha Barkov, you could make a case, his numbers weren't great, but brings such value defensively. But I think you hit on a key phrase for the Conn Smythe. It's for the whole playoffs, and for the whole playoffs, there was no one near as valuable as Connor McDavid. He would have been my number one with the bullet.
So do you think, what do we do? Because it is weird. I mean, I can argue both sides to this. I'm like an attorney on this issue. I mean, I could really argue either side, because it's weird to give an award for an MVP to the guy on the losing team. Do you think we need another trophy? Do we need the Jack Williams Award for the MVP on the winning team?
I mean, it's whatever money they want to give me to sponsor an award, I'm all for it. But I don't think it's a problem at all. I mean, he was dominant. You know, you talk about Sergei Bobrovsky. Yes, he was good throughout 95% of the playoffs, but when you let in 18 goals in 4 games, that slumps down.
But McDavid wasn't great in every Stanley Cup game.
He was nursing an injury.
When you're breaking Gretzky records, too, that's something that just needs to be awarded, period. And I think he was dominant the way it was. I mean, 2003, J.S. Jaguar for the Anaheim Ducks, they lost in the Stanley Cup Finals. I believe he only let in 1 goal in the first round. And he won the Conn Smythe at the end as well. I think if a player, and, you know, a player could be carrying a team, if they are proven to be, you know, the best out of everybody, depending on whether on the winning or losing team, I think that deserves to be awarded no matter what.
It's like the 6th time it ever happened. I think the last time it happened was 76, when, you know, a player actually won the award and also lost in the Cup. So it's kind of weird stuff. But, you know, it would have been a great script for the NHL if the Oilers and McDavid and it all could have been, you know,
I would have preferred that one.
That would have been a much better
anti-Panthers.
All right, guys.
Very anti-Panthers.
Yeah, she's a little anti-Panthers. Anti-Florida. The NHL is going all out for this year's draft, and so is the Sphere. How Vegas is taking this draft party to the next level. That's after these words. Welcome back to Sin City Beat. By now we know the NHL and Vegas is a perfect marriage, and now it's only getting better with the draft at the Sphere. Get this, the draft will be the first ever televised event at the Sphere. It also marks the first time the event inside the Sphere will also be incorporated with the Exosphere. I love that's a big word, Exosphere. Yeah, so the Exosphere display in real time, it's actually going to be, you know, showing, if, for instance, if Macklin Celebrini is drafted first overall by the Sharks, graphics of that will be displayed and visible on the outside of the Sphere. It's pretty cool. So, Case, how big of a deal is this event for Vegas in general?
I think it's super cool and something we'll remember for a long time just because it's the first sports-related event at Sphere, and we've been wondering what's it going to look like. So I mean, it might be the last centralized NHL draft for the foreseeable future. So most of the time an NHL draft, to be honest, wouldn't move the needle for me, but I think this is one we'll remember.
Wait, I want to talk about something you just mentioned there. Central, explain that. So what's going on NHL draft being centralized? What does that mean?
So Jack can feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess the teams were kind of sick of gathering everyone, going to one location, making all the picks there. They thought they could do it better at their headquarters. They did it once at least during COVID. So they went to the league, to Gary Bettman, and said, hey, can we scrap the whole draft as an event thing and just draft from our headquarters? So this is the last one. This is like the going away party. They're blowing it out at the Sphere, and from then on, it's not going to be a big event. It's going to be teams at their own facilities.
So you mean like when we watch the NFL draft, for instance, GMs, execs, they do the little camera inside their headquarters at their respective, places, in Arizona or, Philadelphia, wherever it is. You're saying for the NHL, every executive, all the GMs, everybody comes here, so now they're going to do it more the NFL way in the future.
Exactly, and there will be no big event. Like the NFL kind of does the best of both worlds. They have you at your headquarters, and then they have the big show. But I guess the NHL, it's kind of hard. The NFL is just such on a different level. I guess it's hard to draw everyone to a place of just we're going to read some names on like the NFL. So yeah, you have it right.
Interesting. All right, Mariah, what do you think about all the stuff that's happening here now? The Sphere NHL Awards, the draft, it's cool.
It's very cool, and I'm excited to see how it all goes down. I think it's just a testament to how much this city has evolved and how much it has embraced the sport of hockey. This is not your traditional hockey market, but, Stanley Cup here last year, draft here this year, and it's only going to keep growing, and the Golden Knights have really cemented themselves in this league as one of the top franchises. So it's been incredible to see just how it's all evolved, and I'm glad that this is happening at the Sphere. I'm not a deadhead. I don't really care about nature that much, so none of the Sphere events prior to this really intrigued me, but this, I can get behind this.
Yeah, this is super cool stuff. Jack, you're the only guy in Vegas. You're new to Vegas, but you're the only guy in Vegas in 100+ heat to wear a sweater and not sweat. You're so cool and calm,
We're
collected,
holding together right
under
now.
pressure. I mean, tell us, what do you think about? You're taking in this new city. What do you think about this excitement?
Oh man, I mean, this is awesome. As someone who grew up just loving hockey, playing and stuff like that, coming here, I didn't know how big of a hockey market this was going to be. It's not just the events the NHL puts on, stuff like that. I'm literally going to play, pickup hockey tonight with a bunch of guys, and just seeing the hockey community grow out here has been awesome. It's crazy to think too, the same year that Gary Bettman was talking about bringing the Golden Knights to Vegas, Vegas had just lost their ECHL franchise, and just seeing it all grow has been unbelievable.
It's exciting stuff. We can't wait. Thanks for joining us on Sin City Beat. We'll see you next time. Thank you guys for being here.
Can't believe Mariah.